Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things could get totally radical. Now today, I will be having a very special episode of Splat from the Past because I have been wanting to interview this man for a long, long time. Ever since I was a kid back in the 90s, watching this trilogy on USA Up All Night. I will be interviewing Mark Torgl, the original Melvin, the nerd in the Toxic Avenger. Yes, this has been a long time coming. I just found out, not too long ago, that he was still out and around and doing interviews, and I am just so freaking excited and stuff. The Toxic Avenger, I mean, I love all three of them, but the original is celebrating its 35th anniversary, and it is a landmark classic in the trauma canon, and I am just so friggin' excited. I'm gonna find out anecdotes about that movie and all that. And I'd also like to say, for nostalgic reasons also, yesterday and today was the 30th anniversary of when Andrew Dice Clay sold out Madison Square Garden. Never in history has someone of that caliber of comedy and fame ever sold out an event like that. It was just a huge deal at the time and such a controversy. And then 10 years later, he came back and sold it out again. But people remember the first one the most for being a huge accomplishment. So, congratulations on 30 years, the Dice Man. So, here is my interview with Mark Torgl. So going back in time, did you gravitate towards movies early on?
I mean, I was always a movie fan, especially movies of the more surreal nature. I was always a fan of like Buñuel and Fellini and Kubrick, things that were a little out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm. What movie did you see that made you want to be involved with movies?
I think I had a film class in college that was called by Louis Buñuel called Un Chien Andalou. And the opening shot is a razor blade cutting open an eyeball, and that inspired me somehow to really want to go toward the bizarre world of filmmaking.
Oh wow! There's like an eyeball hanging.
Do you know that movie?
No, but I was curious though. Was there like an eyeball hanging, actual eyeball hanging?
It was more like inside the socket and everything. So it was very striking to say the least.
Oh man. What are your favorite movies of all time?
I like The Shining a lot. I like, as far as like in the horror genre, I like Basket Case. I like the Nightmare series. I'm all over the place. The Clockwork Orange is definitely up there. One of my faves. And one of my favorite movies of all time, believe it or not, is Hair. the musical version. I can watch that over and over again. I love Badlands. Anything by Terrence Malick, I really like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you lean towards horror, but you also have an eclectic taste as well.
Yeah, I kind of like also like my taste in music go all over the place too. I'm open, to anything.
Nice.
All genres.
Nice. Where are you originally from?
Originally from Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up there, and went to Michigan State, where I made my first movie, and did acting in high school, And then I moved to New York for almost 10 years, went to NYU Film School, and I've been out here in Los Angeles now for almost 30 years.
Mm-hmm. When you were at NYU Film School, was there anybody in your class that went on to become hugely successful?
Well, there's one guy, his name is Spike Lee.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah.
And there's another lead, Ang Lee. They were both classmates of mine.
Wow.
and Jim Jarmusch graduated like the year before I started.
Mm-hmm.
So he's also, and I really like his stuff too. But I've worked on both Spike Lee's films and Ang Lee's films, their student films. So, and then of course there's me. So
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. Did Martin Scorsese come back and teach?
No. We had a lot of guest lecturers, but Martin Scorsese was not one of them.
Yeah, because I know him and Oliver Stone. I think they both came back to teach at some point, but not when you were there, I guess.
Not when I was there, no.
So how did trauma come into your life with the first turn on?
Well, I was at NYU in New York, and Trauma put a job notice on our job board to come work on a real film for the summer, during our break. And it was like, it's a real film. You won't get paid like you would on a real film, but it's a great experience. So I went down to the Trauma building, which at the time was in Hell's Kitchen in New York City, and interviewed with Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers. And Lloyd was like, "Oh, you go to NYU. What do you want to do on this film that we're making?" And I was like, "Well, I like to be the script supervisor. That way I get to work with the director. See the whole thing go down." He was like, "Great, you can be the script supervisor. What else do you want to do?" And I was like, "I enjoy writing." He was like, "Wonderful, you can write some additional scenes. What else do you want to do?" I should have said, "Can I direct?" But basically, because they don't pay anybody, they were going to let anybody do whatever they want. So that's how I started with them. And the way I got into acting for Trauma, while we were making the first turn on, mm-hmm. I was a script supervisor, and there was a pretty big role. Dwayne and the actor that was cast for that role just didn't show up. Mm-hmm. Could be because they don't pay anybody, but he just didn't show up for the days that they were shooting him. And so Lloyd said, "Mark, you do it."
Yeah.
I mean, I did have acting experience, from high school and a little bit of college. So I gladly did it. And it was another socially awkward character, nerdy type character. Mm. And there's some very funny dinner scenes and other scenes with the camp counselor who was my girlfriend in the movie.
Yeah, I was reading, too, Madonna auditions for the movie.
Yeah, that would have really been awesome if they cast her. But I didn't really know who she was at the time. She hadn't really hit it big. But apparently she came down with like a camp outfit and all decked out. And they didn't cast her. So that would have been who she would have been my girlfriend had they cast her in the movie. So that was kind of a letdown when I learned later that they rejected her.
But it was Vincent D'Onofrio's first movie.
Yes, yeah, he was really a good guy. I've worked a lot with him because some of the scenes that I additionally wrote involved him. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. He was very talented from the beginning, so we all knew he was going someplace.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And then you played Melvin in the immortal cult classic, The Toxic Avenger. I used to watch this movie. I used to watch this movie on USA Up All Night back in the 90s, along with the sequels. When did you first realize that this movie was a cult phenomenon?
I think when we were making it, we either knew it was going to be a cult hit or like the worst movie ever made. And it was kind of both. And it's kind of interesting the way they cast me in that, because I was still going to NYU, and apparently they had auditioned, at least this was what they told me, like 100 kids to play Melvin. And what Lloyd and Michael finally talked amongst themselves and said, what we really want is what Mark did in the first turn-on. And they called me up and said, listen, we've got this new movie, and there's a role, it's like the major role of the janitor that turns into a monster. And we auditioned all these kids, and what we really want is what you did last year. So if you want the role, it's yours. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do that. Can I be the script supervisor as well? And so I got to see the whole movie being made, not just the scenes that I was in. And we knew there was something different and something bizarre. And like I said, we thought either this is going to be the worst movie ever made or it's going to be a huge cult hit. When it finally was released, it didn't even last in the theaters for more than a couple weeks. We all went to the premiere, which was in Midtown Manhattan, and it kind of disappeared really quickly. But then the Bleecker Street Cinema, which is kind of an independent movie theater in Greenwich Village, started playing it at midnight on the weekends, and that's when the crowds started coming, and word of mouth, it got really popular, sort of in the vein of Rocky Horror, and the people would come back every week and dress up and yell at the screen, and soon it caught on theaters around the country doing the same thing. And that's when we realized it was something special. I actually made a personal appearance at the Bleecker Street Cinema one Saturday night and attempted some stand-up comedy. I know you do stand-up comedy.
Yep.
And I was awful, but the crowd loved me anyway, and it was really a great night to see how much the fans really liked the movie and seemed to love me. So
yeah,
it took off.
Yeah, so they recognized you. That's probably why.
Well, yeah, because I went up on stage and, talked to them and, like I said, attempted to do some stand-up comedy, which they loved, even though I was awful.
I heard that the sheep you kissed had lice, and you found out long after. Is that true? When the lights went on and I was there with the sheep, there were bugs jumping around on it. And, when I had to pretend to get sick and went and jumped out the window, I mean, I was disgusted that this thing was crawling with bugs. And the getting sick part was very easy. Because that sheep was, I don't know where they got it, but it was really disgusting. Yeah, I would have sued them after that.
Yeah, there was a lot of reasons that I could have sued them, but
yeah,
I went ahead and was a team player. The scene where I catch on fire and run down the street?
Yes.
Which a stunt person did, but when they did the flame, it actually jumped onto my hand, the flame, and burnt my hand. And I still haven't scarred from that.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I read that several people that worked for Lloyd Kaufman ended up leaving him after this movie because of the scene where the dog gets shot.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me, but another interesting scene, the car that flips over, when that was shot, we were, I was, behind the camera doing the script supervising, and when it flipped over and landed, the roll bar collapsed. Ooh. And we thought this guy was dead. Yeah. We all kind of ran up to the car, and it had only collapsed on the passenger side, so he was all right. Yeah. We only saw the passenger side. And Lloyd said if he had killed that guy, that would have been the end of Trauma right there.
Yeah. Was he injured?
He wasn't. He was fine because the roll bar was fine on the driver's side.
Oh, okay. So, that's good.
we just saw the collapsed side. If there was a passenger in there, the passenger would have been dead.
Yeah. Why didn't you play Melvin in part 3?
In part 2 and 3?
Yeah.
That's an interesting story because I had moved out to Los Angeles, and Lloyd, I guess, called me to see if I wanted to be in it, and I had a job. I was editing stuff, and I said, well, can you pay me something? It's like, I'm in LA now. I'm trying to make a living. I'm trying to survive. He was like, well, that's not really the Trauma way. He was like, but we'll fly you out. If you have a friend or something you can stay with in New York, that would be great. But I said, well, send me the script. And when the script that they sent me, I just didn't think it was very good. And again, I said, listen, to make it worth my while, give me something, give me $500 or something. And they wouldn't do it, so I turned it down. Later, Lloyd wrote in his book, Everything I Know About Filmmaking I Learned from the Toxic Avenger. He said the biggest mistake he ever made was not giving Mark Torgl the $50 that he asked for to do parts 2 and 3. I actually asked for more than that, but he made it funny by saying they would give me $50.
Yeah.
Now, the guy that they did hire to do it, which they put like big teeth, front teeth on and stuff.
Yeah.
He's forever known as the fake Melvin, which is I feel kind of bad for him because that's his claim to fame, and he's the fake Melvin. So.
Yeah. He did look like you a little bit, but just a little bit. But so after. But
then I did go back for Toxic Avenger 4.
Yes.
It is a toxic. And that, I didn't get paid, but I did it just for fun. Because I was, I just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought the concept of the movie was interesting.
Yeah, it was nice to revisit and all that.
Yeah. And the cool thing is when I went back to do that, when we shot Toxic Avenger, it was just, random people working for the experience, film students and just random people. But when I went back for Toxic Avenger 4, all their employees were huge Trauma fans at that point and Toxic Avenger fans. So they really were thrilled that I was there, to do the scene.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
They were very happy to meet me.
Why do you think Trauma has had such a lasting cult appeal that carries on into this age of political correctness?
It's all about the fans. If you go to these conventions where some of them I've been doing, mm-hmm. The fans are just rabid and they're very loyal, and they love the bizarreness of the Trauma movies and the craziness and the over-the-top violence and sexuality. It's just the fans have kept it alive. And, Lloyd will be the first one to tell you that Trauma has survived because of the they're just really, really rabid and loyal to Troma. They love Troma. That's what's kept them afloat all these years.
Yeah, and it has a very, morbid, unique New York sensibility about it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Do you have any upcoming projects you can share?
Well, I'm actually in Return to Nukem High Part 2, which has, come out recently. That's Troma's latest movie. I've got a movie that I made that has gotten distribution. It's called Toxic Tutu. It's the almost true story of whatever became Melvin the Mop Boy from the Toxic Avenger. And that's doing really well. It's streaming on just about everything, like Amazon Prime, Google Play, Vudu, Apple iTunes, and the DVD is available also on Amazon. And I just did a cameo in a little film that I don't even know the name of it because I don't think they named it yet, but it's also sort of Troma sponsored. So I'm kind of always on the radar of something new that Troma is doing, and I'm like the consummate Troma actor. So there's always something,
Yeah.
And it's like I never audition for these things. I just kind of get calls and say, "Hey, can you be in this movie?" So
That's a good
there
thing.
will always be something new.
Yeah, and you got your own films you do too?
Yeah, well, Toxic Tutu was my own film.
Oh, okay.
And that's the one that is available now. So
I'll check that one out.
yeah.
And you have any
Definitely.
you have any convention appearances coming up?
Well, I just did one. I just did the Cult Classic Convention in Texas, which was really fun. I had a good time. That was last weekend, actually.
Yeah.
And again, it's always great to meet these crazy fans. And the funny thing is that almost everyone that comes by says, "Oh, I've watched that when I was a little kid," and had a lasting impression. Well, I can only imagine because it's not really a kid's film. But a lot of people saw the Toxic Crusaders, where they were, initiated to Toxic Avenger from that, and they were like, "Oh, there's a real movie based on the Toxic Crusaders," and it was quite a shock, I think, when they see how different that is from the cartoon.
Yeah, I remember the cartoon. But I had some guests come on this month to promote Cult Classic Con. I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was fun, and the guy that runs it also has a barbecue restaurant. And the restaurant is called the Gas Station, and it's actually the actual gas station that Texas Chainsaw Massacre was filmed at. There was a scene at the gas station.
Yeah.
And he bought the actual gas station, so now there's all sorts of souvenirs and stuff inside, as well as the barbecue that is really excellent. That was one of the better conventions that I've been to that I've really enjoyed. It wasn't too big, and sometimes the big conventions can get really claustrophobic, like Comic-Con that I've been to, and there's some in Los Angeles I've been to that are just so big that it's almost overwhelming. But this was nice.
Yeah. Well, next time you get booked in California, I'll be there to come meet you.
Okay, where are you actually? Are you in Los Angeles or?
No, I live in Redding, California, but I come out to Los Angeles quite a bit, and I go to cons pretty much everywhere in California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, Mark, I thank you so much for coming on today, and I'm glad that you're still out there, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thank you so much, Tommy.
Okay.
Good.
My pleasure. Okay, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. Mark Torgl. Ain't he a cool dude? Wow, he's still out there. He's keeping the trauma legacy alive, and that is so awesome. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.